Well, hello there, everyone. This is Bruce Pulver with Heather Carter for another episode of Can I Have a Word with You? Hey, Heather. Good morning. I'm
Hello, everybody.
coming live and remote from a hotel. I'm traveling this week, so if the connection's a little choppy, I apologize in advance for that. But we're gonna dive into another episode, and as you can see, scrolling across the bottom, we are going to unpack the word today: pause. And it's a pretty important day for Heather today. So I'm going to let you kick this off and then we'll break down pause and try to grab some nuggets out of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I was thinking about this last night or a couple days ago when I was talking about unpacking this word, and maybe it is kind of subconscious, but today is my 8-year anniversary of not dying from leukemia. I was diagnosed on February 6th, 2015. Yeah, I'm pretty happy about that most days. But I'm grateful that God has brought me this far and that we made it. There were so many things that got us to the exact right time. In fact, when I got there, they told me till my appointment, which was supposed to be the following week, like 5 days later, that I would probably not have lived that long. So it was huge. Time was of the essence, and God brought us there right on time. So very, very grateful for that today.
Well, we are so glad that you're here. I've had so much that I've learned from you in our conversations of Can I Have a Word with You? So it is a celebration day, and I'm I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So, but we could go in 100 miles an hour, right? We boom. Hey, that's behind me. Here we go, boom, and we just jump into life again. And sometimes we can, I see it sometimes as getting head over heels or a little bit over our skis, if you will, just with going so fast. And we decided to land on the word pause today. And why don't you share a little bit about kind of when you see the need for that, or how you're aware of it, or what does it mean to you, or kind of when do you know it's time to?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of things rolling around in my head about this word, but one of them that's a little more fresh is probably because I've been helping lead a women's small group at church, and we're doing a book called or a study through our church called Get Better, and it's kind of based around when Jesus healed the paralyzed man at the pool of Bethsaida, if you're familiar with that scripture at all. But basically, he goes to the man who's been there, I think, like 35 years, 38 years, and has not been walking, and just walks up to the man and says to him, "Do you want to get well? Do you want to get better?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, of course I do. I'm sitting by this pool hoping to get in this water to get healed. Why would you ask me that?" And he's like, "Well, you've been here 38 years, so maybe you don't want to get better bad enough." So the whole premise of this study is about how we do that. And this past week has been about rest. And in order to rest, Jesus did that a lot, actually. He went off to places on his own and was quiet and still. And then he would jump back in and be with a lot of people and heal people and preach and teach. And then he would get away by himself and he would pause the busyness and refresh his spirit and his soul. So I've been really thinking about that this whole week of pausing, resting.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do when we pause, right? We can reflect, we can be grateful, we can kind of maybe reorganize our thoughts, we can declutter sometimes, and I think that's really important to use those moments to do what's right in that moment. Often, I think we become so routinized or in our routines, or almost let the subconscious just kind of take things over,
Mm-hmm.
um, that we can sometimes find ourselves, about to hit the wall and not even knowing it. So I love the pause aspect of just taking a moment.
Mm-hmm. And just resting in the midst of things that seem kind of crazy for you to be resting in. That's one of the other things that Jesus did a lot was, he talks about how the disciples, they were all on a boat and there was a big storm and they looking for Jesus to help him, and he's sleeping, he's resting. And so, just the dynamics of that was freaking out, resting. A lot of times I think it's in the times of our day and the times of our life where we are going 100 miles an hour with our hair on fire, are the times where it's most important to take a nap or sit quietly, or hide in the closet at work if you need to. Whatever you need to do to get away and rest and reset. And Bruce, I was thinking about that. We didn't put two and two together. I wasn't anyway until now. But you flown to another city and gotten to, and instead of just, I got a lot to do, I just arrived here, that you're willing to pause and put first things first and realize that doing something that talks about how you can help people or encouraging other people to rest is more important than you hitting the ground running through your day. Uh, so you're being a good example. Good job.
Well, it's very interesting what you said. When there's not a whole lot going on, we can sometimes say, okay, I'm going to just use this moment to pause. But if you think about, kind of from a secular perspective, you think about the highest level of intensity of a sport, or the need to make, from a golfer's perspective, a certain putt that has a big implication in a tournament, or Super Bowl's coming up. Finding a calm or a pause in the chaos, and I'm using that term not meaning that it's always chaotic, but there's levels of performance required. There's types of follow through you need. Yeah, we're headed to a 3-day meeting, but it was really important for me and to be intentional about, before I go to that, to find this moment. And is this a pause for me? No, this is really what fills me up. But in that filling of me up, well, I feel like it is a pause of its own to ensure that I'm paying attention to the right things. And for me, a verse rose up. Obvious for me, it was obvious, and I wanted to read two verses. It's Psalm 46, 10 and 11 from the Contemporary English Version. Says, "Our God says, calm down and learn that I am God." There's several versions of that, right? Be still and know that I'm God.
Mhm.
All nations on earth will honor me. And then verse 11 is uh, the Lord all powerful is with us. God, the God of Jacob, is our fortress. So in calming down and pausing, it can give us that opportunity to say we are not alone, and we're surrounded by a fortress of the power of God to help us through these times. So, it's probably a bit of practice to say, can I find a calmness when everything around me seems to be chaotic? And that, I think, allows
Yes.
us to keep moving. Maybe while we're waiting for God, we're in motion, we're waiting for his plan to manifest, and try to find a calm space in that while we keep moving. I don't know. That's one thing that I'm trying to concentrate on is I have the other things that are important in life that I have to do, but not without him ever. And I'm trying to make more of a 24/7 with him, not just the morning or not just when I find that quiet time, but can I find him, because he's not going anywhere. He's always there. But I mean, can I plug into him as we go about our day, finding that pause or calmness?
Yeah. And I think something I've learned, or I shouldn't say learned, I'm learning and thinking about, that's come up this past week for me, is that, one of the phrases that I've learned in some of the recovery groups that I'm a part of, they talk about a phrase called, tells us to pause, pray, and proceed.
Mm.
So when you are asked a question that about, jumping into an activity, or that you can pause, pray about it, and then proceed. Or if the thing that's gotten me in trouble is that sometimes I speak or jump into an argument with my husband or a friend or a coworker, and if I would pause before I speak and pray about it, and then proceed, it would help me avoid so many problems. I got myself in very deep weeds this week because I didn't do that. I just kind of spouted off, and then I let my emotions take control, and I didn't give it to God, and then I have to go back and repair some things I've said or done. So that can really help us prevent problems in our relationships if we will pause, pray, and proceed. It will help us not get involved in activities. So now we're overwhelmed and overcommitted. There's so many things that can be helpful if we pause, pray, and proceed.
Yeah. So I broke down the word pause. We do that every week. We take the word and we write it vertically, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe let's go through that for a second and see if there's some commentary, some sort of top of mind stuff, Heather, that comes to you. So I'll just read one letter
Mm-hmm.
at a time. The P is push that button every so often, meaning that pause button. So I find that I have to pay attention to it, and then I become more familiar with it, and I'm able to do it in more difficult situations. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And another part of that is if we pause, let's say, you know, if you're watching a movie or watching a show that you like, sometimes we hear something we like, so we pause it and we replay it and rewind a little bit and listen again. So I think sometimes the pausing can also make us stop and not only reflect on what we need to do going forward, but we can make us go, wait a minute, what just happened there? Sometimes it might be something great, like I want to hear that again. Sometimes you might need to replay it and be like, who was that? Who just said that?
Yeah.
What did I just go temporarily insane for a minute? Like sometimes you can stop and pause, replay it, and then maybe try to prevent yourself from going further down this like really
Yeah.
bad spiral that you're heading.
The opportunity to reflect either way. Okay. The A, acknowledge that we're worthy in that moment when we pause. I think that's a time to say, for me, I've found that it's usually because I'm overwhelmed. And if I'm overwhelmed, I feel like I'm not able to solve this. Might not be enough. I might feel like I'm limiting myself. But I think in that moment of a pause, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important that I have to acknowledge that I am worthy. I have gifts through the grace of God. That I have. There's a worthiness
Mm-hmm.
there that I need to kind of recharge sometimes.
Yeah, pausing to be grateful and thankful for where we're at. We're exactly where we're supposed to be, even though we sometimes want to be further down the road. We're still exactly where we're supposed to be.
That's, that is so true. It takes so much faith and trust to I don't say buy into, but to actually live by what you just said. I mean, I don't think that we
Mm-hmm.
should gloss over those words. We are right where we're supposed to be. Whew, right? It's like, okay. The U is unleash the pressure of our own grip on things. So to me, a pause is a bit of a relaxation, and it doesn't necessarily mean just lay out and take a nap, but it's sort of this mental just breathe, just relax, loosen the grip. As a golfer would tend to tighten up when things are under pressure. So pause and release the grip, release the tension.
Mm-hmm. Just taking the time to turn it over to God. One of the prayers I've talked about in here that I pray a lot that's very quick and easy is, well, easy to say, not always easy, but to just pray, oh Jesus, I surrender, take care of everything.
Yeah,
I surrender myself to you, take care of everything. Move
yeah,
forward instead of just like you said, trying to manipulate and control every outcome.
yeah. I love the word proceed that you used on the three P's because it is surrendering while we keep moving. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The S is step back and give yourself a break. We're not perfect. There is no perfection. They're seeking excellence, in my opinion, but I think the chase of perfection has its own just devastating potential to just blow us up if we feel like we haven't met it unless we're perfect. So I would say step back and give yourself a break.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Giving yourself a break is a challenge, at least for me.
Yeah. Why do we think that is? Maybe there's standards by which we were raised. Maybe it's expectations of others. Maybe we've seen, I don't know, maybe we've seen times when things just, what we call in music, it just locked in and the rhythm was just perfect. The groove was just smoking, or whatever
Mhm.
you'd want to say from a sports perspective or a writing perspective or a painting perspective. It was that one time when you were just in the flow, and it's difficult to be in the flow all the time. So, should we hold ourselves to that standard of where we felt like that was like
Mhm.
the perfect, for lack of a better word, performance? Or should we give ourselves a break and just say, I'm reaching for the best I can do today?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then
I'm
the
going to
E,
ponder that one today for sure.
and then the E I came up with pause was embrace the life that we have with joy. And I know today's day is an incredibly joyful one that you're here 8 years and we're having this conversation and you have a smile and you're still working through stuff just like I am. And we have this opportunity to have the conversation. So I'm going to embrace the life today with joy because I get to spend it with you on a podcast.
Well, what better way to spend your day, Bruce? Well,
Look at her deflecting that
I'm glad that
compliment.
you're willing. Yeah, I think that, yeah, I mean, just pausing in general in my life is a real challenge for me. So I tend to want to plow ahead, and if it's not working, then you double down. And that sometimes the opposite is what's necessary, that we need to step back and rest, make sure we're not enforced trying to force God is not in, and just let him be in charge of things, you know? And the only way we can do that is if we take time to just pause and pray and listen and give it over.
Absolutely. So I was told one time by a friend I was kind of stuck, and I just kept felt like if I just double down and keep doing the same thing and doing more of it, I'll get through this thing. And sometimes that's the case. But the wise point that he made to me is he said, Bruce, sometimes when you're in a rut, the best thing to do is to stop digging, which meant
Mm-hmm.
to me, hey, maybe you look at it a different way. Maybe you leave it alone for a minute. Whether you're trying to solve a problem, maybe being in a different setting, maybe walking outside, maybe just pushing the desk away and going to another room sometimes can help with that as well. So yeah, pausing, a discipline, a kind of a habit to try to put in place to pause a little bit more often. You know, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So sometimes that pause, or even if it's not a complete stop, maybe it is just sort of slowing down the tempo a bit to work through
Mm-hmm.
things, to get the mechanics in place, get the process in place, and then you can maybe
Mm-hmm.
ramp back up to where you've maybe eliminated something in the process that has stopped you, slowed you down. Right.
Right. And you have to pause, I think, the self, I guess, not inflicted, that sounds like a bad word, but the self um, initiated pause is ever so much better than when well, I don't necessarily think I gave myself leukemia, but I was under some extreme strain and stress, and probably not handling things as well as I could have. And so after I had leukemia, was in recovering from that, I was also seeing a counselor about some things, and I would start kind of getting unsettled, or I don't know, not working things through properly. And he would say, Heather, you can do this laying down, or you can do this standing up. And you've already done this laying down. So I suggest you do the work you need to do so you don't end up back in the hospital
Yeah.
with some other disease because you're not taking care of yourself. You know, you and I have a friend, Sylvia, who has is in the process of writing a book, I think, called Stress to Kill. And, stress from not pausing, eventually you're going to pause, and you can either do it on your own, or God can help you, however it works, do it to yourself by getting sick or having to take mental health breaks for long periods of time because you're not attending to that pause on your
Yeah.
own.
So anyone that's listening out here today, let's try this next week. Just find some intentional moments to pause. It could be a 2-minute inhale, exhale. Could be a 15-minute walk. It could be just pushing back a minute. Pay attention, because that stress builds on itself, and it's hard to recognize incremental stress. I've found in
Yes.
my life, it kind of builds on itself. It doesn't just automatically show up. So try to unpack a few things there and pause. So
Mhm.
Heather, let's wrap this up. If folks want to reach you, they want to book you for a speaking engagement or get in touch with you and your books, it's heathercarterwrites.com, right?
Yep.
Put this up here one last time. And then for Bruce, it's at abovethechatterourwordsmatter.com. So Heather, thanks so much for a great conversation today. And I'm so joyful for today, for the day that it is today, 8 years of
Hmm.
being.
And I will just, like you said, encourage people through this week. One of the things that Bruce and I are passionate about, why we do these podcasts, these aren't just weekly things that we come up with. They're based on books we've written, where if you utilize those, it will help you pause and reflect on some of the things that we talk about. He has his book, Above the Chatter, Our Words Matter. And I have two books, Soul-Selfie and Soul-Selfie #NoFilter. But also on my site, you can go and browse the blogs by topics. So if you're struggling with resentments or being overwhelmed, the things that we talk about on this podcast, you can click on those and everything I've ever written will pop up. So utilize these tools through the week to help you find things to reflect on while you're pausing. So that's
Absolutely. And
all.
on my page, I've got an Instagram page and a Facebook page called Above the Chatter, Bruce Pulver. And Monday through Friday, I post a word, just like we did today, just like we did pause, and just try to lay some when it comes to me, because I need them. And then
Mm-hmm.
I just publish them out. I call them mindset messages, and just take one and apply something that you may be able to grab a nugget from. So
Yep.
until next week,
All
Heather,
right,
great to
Bruce,
be with
take
you.
care.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye, everybody.